Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have any audio for this? Does anybody hear me, what I'm saying? Let me turn something down here. Might help. Okay, great. Thank you. This is Marilyn, and it's time for the noon edition of Welcome to My World. This is Monday, the 6th of June, and I'm back, I think. I feel like I'm back mostly. Anyway, I almost never, ever get sick, but boy, when I do, it really hit me. So, I'm more or less normal. Anyway, I know we missed several days last week, but that's just going to happen, I guess, from time to time. Anyway, this morning, we've had these indices kind of picked up. The leader, it seems like this morning, was TF, seemed a little stronger. But for the last hour and a half, they've sure been, there's just been a lot of paint drying. Crude oil has been in a terrific chop. The 6C kind of, I was surprised, the 6C kind of took off this morning along with crude oil, and it was a little bit stronger than crude oil. We've got the VIX right now trading just a hair below 14, and all of the currencies are in a real tight range along with gold. So, and Brent oil is just it's wound up real tight in a little tiny bitty chop. Nobody wants to do anything. So why might that be? I think in about 25 minutes we're going to find out, because Mrs. Yellen will be speaking, and she's gonna have to make a case, I think, today. If you notice, she was talking about, and then all the different members of the Brain Trust come on after she does, over a few days. But when they had their meeting, they indicated that they were going to start raising interest rates probably in June. And then we had last Friday's numbers hit. So if you're new to Apex and you're new to trading, you might want to keep in mind that the reason I go over the news every day is to give you a little heads up and a forewarning. But those numbers hit Friday, and I sure hope if anybody was in a trade, they were on the right side of it, because that happened so fast and it was so furious. The employment numbers were beyond terrible. They were hugely terrible, which is basically what everybody else has known, except, I don't know, I guess the Brain Trust and whoever is at the switch in Washington. But to see it in black and white like that, the markets responded immediately. So today, she's got a little damage control to do. And the last time they raised interest rates was in December. And if you were with us in January, you might remember January for the indices, unless you were on the short side of the trade, was probably not much fun, because the stock market just said, you know what, we don't like this. And it does that. It definitely responds to what they have to say. So it's well worth your time to pay attention. And that will happen also for those of you who are currency traders and you trade those Forex pairs. You want to be sure any kind of economic numbers in those countries that are tied to your currency pairs, your Forex pairs, can do just about the same thing. But when their central bankers announce a statement or a rate change, those currencies will respond immediately. So later this month, we're going to see this in the U.S. dollar and the euro hugely, depending on what the referendum in England is. That's a whole UK public referendum. They're going to vote on whether they want to stay in the euro zone. They have hung on to their British pound sterling currency, which shows they're a little smarter than the average bear. But Europe is in deep, dire economic woes, and they took Greece into the eurozone, so now they're looking at how they're going to bail Greece out. And I don't know, if I was a British citizen, I think I'd be a little leery of picking up the bill on that too. So these are all things that will affect the markets, and you just have to be aware of when they're coming out and what can happen. There were a couple things I wanted to show you out of my little bag of tips and tricks this morning. And one of them was early this morning on crude oil. I'm going to go back here because you don't see this very often. Let's see. This was, yeah, right back here. First thing when I fired up the Great Dragon here, and my charts all came up. One of the things I noticed, this is my crude oil chart, and it's set to 6 ticks on the C's. I mainly will trade crude oil off of 12-tick chart because that seems to work with the old apex, APEX, pivot, entry, alert, and exit, or exit and alert. Anyway, I talk about how respectful crude oil is of these range channels. And so I'm a big fan of these range channels. But on the 6-tick chart here, I have these set, instead of an hour, I have them set for 20 minutes. Well, the first thing I noticed was, look at all these little teeny skinny range boxes. I mean, they're just little skinny ones. This is because it took so much time for the single bar, and it's only a 6-tick bar, to move, that there is absolutely no way in the world that you're going to have enough momentum to capture any trade out of that. So when you see these things all chop up, and notice here on the 12-tick, this is an hour. It took an hour for what, 3 of these bars to form? And the real telltale, especially given today, is right here on the 6B. These are long bonds, 30-year bonds. And this is the futures of the bonds. But look at the range channels set to an hour. Yes, it's a nice downtrend, but boy, you have to have a lot of patience to work with that. There was exceeding volume for a while, but now the volume started to stagger off. And might that be an indication that bond traders are waiting to see what Mrs. Yellen has to say? So right now is a good time to just sit and watch and wait and see what they do. If anything, crude oil has been very disinclined to break above this level. So there's no way to get trades in this. YM gave a nice trade this morning. And I don't have the NQ up, but I think some people got some ticks. Today, usually the NQ is a little stronger than the YM, but today the YM was pretty strong. So anyway, we've got about 20 minutes to go until she starts talking. See what she has to say, and then tomorrow at 8:30, this will be a little interesting. The non-farm productivity, and these are the revised numbers tomorrow. I love how they revise everything. Why don't they just do it right in the first place? And there are economic numbers coming from Europe early in the morning. So a lot of people are not aware of just all the things that Apex has to offer, because I mean, everybody that's a member of Apex knows exactly how they felt when they first came here. It's just overwhelming. There's all kinds of things that are new and different, and all these settings and all these strategies and charts, and oh my goodness, and where do I find this and that and the next thing. But it will eventually, there is a learning curve to this, and it's a significant learning curve, but it will definitely pay off if you stick to it. But we've got a kind of a breakfast club that starts up early in the morning, and the Cajun boys are always in the room, and they kind of keep that going. And those guys do very, very well. And what they're doing is they're trading the afternoon session of the London market. So there are definitely some trades to be taken in there. So by all means, if you're, depending on your time zone, and some people have a full-time job, and it's just great, they can get up early and they can trade with the Cajun boys in the morning and go to work, and then all the rest of us that are here during the day are usually done by 3 at the latest, 3 or 4, and most at noon. But then there's a whole other bunch that comes in at I don't know, around 6, 6:30, 7, that like to trade the Forex pairs, and some of them trade them straight up Forex, and some of them off of Nadex. So all those things are available to you. It's all on the website. But this room is open all the time. If you try to log in and you don't get in, it's because they're resetting the server on it, and it'll be down for a few minutes. And they do reset that every afternoon, I think at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or something, and it throws everybody out. But you have to log back in. So, and yes, Sasha makes a great point in the chat that if you get up a little earlier, it was extremely nice London session. So she's going to post some charts either this evening or tomorrow morning from today. That's how we all learn, is to mark those charts, post them, and nobody will learn more from posting those charts than you learn yourself from doing them, ever. It gives all the rest of us some good ideas, but it is really, really helpful. Stuart, that begins, I don't know that there's a beginning time. If you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 people in this room that are taking a look at where some opportunities might be. But I know by 4 or 5 in the morning, there's several people in here, maybe 15 or 20 of them. But one thing they all are extremely aware of is what times those European numbers come out, because that's how you know what to be watching, so you can take advantage of it. So circle the 23rd of this month. That's a big, big day for all of the markets, because the U.S. markets will be watching to see what happens to Britain on that. Then we've got next week we're going to be treated to another FOMAC meeting, and I think kind of recall what happened the last time. It was rock and roll. And at the same time next week that happens, we're going to be rolling these indices contracts to the September contract. So there will be announcements made of all of that.